the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
This honorable House now resumes its sitting. Call of the roll.
Mrs. Holness, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Samuda, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malawu-Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terry Long, Ms. Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Ms. Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright. Mr. Witter.
As usual, it is my privilege to welcome everyone to another sitting of the Houses of Parliament, as particularly this evening as we have the continuation of the sectoral debate. And our speaker this evening is the Honorable Fable Williams, Minister, MP, and Minister of Education, Youth and Information. And so with that, I want to extend a special welcome to persons who are joining us this evening, particularly for the presentation of the Minister. And I want to begin with Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Youth and Education and Youth, representatives from the Canadian High Commission who are here with us this afternoon, Dr. Kassan Troop, Acting Chief Education Officer, Ministry of Education, and I know there are other persons from the ministry which include past students of my own school, Westwood High School. I want to welcome you really heartily to this evening's, not just my own alma mater, but also from the great constituency of South Trelawney. I want to welcome the principals of the various teachers colleges here who are joining us. Professor Andrew Spencer, President of the Caribbean Maritime University. And for me, this evening, Minister, I have a very special group of students from the Freeman's Hall Primary School, which is in South Trelawney. And they have traveled far, and they were very excited to be here this afternoon, particularly to hear their Minister of Education. And they have adopted the Freeman's Hall Primary School, and their teachers have adopted this evening my own CPO's son, Quayston War, who attends the Ulster Spring Primary, but had a special interest in coming here to hear the minister this evening. And so I want to welcome you and tell you it is particularly a wonderful evening for me to have you here with us this afternoon. And also from the minister's own alma mater, our students and teachers from Ferncourt High School. And she is particularly happy to have you here this evening. There are students and teachers from the Mona Heights Primary School, and generally everyone who has joined us this evening for the presentation by the minister. We welcome you heartily this afternoon. Education is what moves us from poverty into prosperity, and it's very important in the lives of all of us. I also want to welcome online those who are joining us by the various social media platforms, and trust you will find this a most informative presentation by the Minister of Education. So I want us all to feel very welcome this afternoon. House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, it is our intention to continue the sectoral debate, and the Honorable Fable Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, and Member of Parliament for St. Andrew Southeastern, will be our only speaker for today. For Eastern St. Andrew. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
He's very careful about who they represent, House Leader. We want to make sure that we're, and I understand very well. So, Minister of Education, the Honorable Fable Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me join with you in welcoming all our students, our teachers, principals of colleges and universities, and others who are here this afternoon. Madam Speaker, this is my 7th year of making a contribution to sectoral debates. I'm deeply appreciative of the honor. I thank the people of St. Andrew Eastern for allowing me to serve. Thanks as well to the Most Honorable Prime Minister for giving me this privilege. Madam Speaker, I do not have words enough for the support and encouragement that my family provides. I want to acknowledge them and acknowledge as well those in my constituency, councillor, caretaker, councillor, management team, and all who work on my behalf in the constituency of St. Andrew Eastern. To all of you, I express my heartfelt thanks. Madam Speaker, thanks to the team in its entirety at the Central Ministry, the regions, and the agencies, led by Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, Permanent Secretary Acting, and Dr. Kassan Troop, Chief Education Officer Acting. Because of your collective work, thousands of Jamaican children and young people are being helped each year to take advantage of the opportunities that the public education system provides them. Madam Speaker, in setting the context, I was sworn in as Minister of Education, Youth and Information on Sunday, September 13, 2020, and started on the Monday. It helps that I remind myself from time to time of this date because schools were closed. The Ministry of Health and Wellness reported on that day that Jamaica had a total of 3,933 confirmed cases of the COVID-19 virus, and that the age of persons who had confirmed cases ranged from 13 days to 97 years. Primary and secondary schools, which had opened every year like clockwork on the first Monday of every September month, stretching back to 1965, when the Education Act came into force, remained closed. My first meeting by the Wednesday of my first week, along with my then Minister of State, Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan, was with the Jamaica Teachers Association. My second meeting on that same day was with Dr. Paris Leo Ayi and Dr. Karen Webster Carr, the Minister of State and the Ministry's team, to discuss education and COVID, because the imperative was to get our children back in the face-to-face environment as quickly as possible. There was an urgency throughout the society. Of significance, Madam Speaker, my third meeting on that same Wednesday, on that same day, was with the Honorable Prime Minister and with Professor Orlando Patterson and my State Minister to discuss education transformation. Madam Speaker, even in the midst of COVID-19, transformation of education was an imperative. Madam Speaker, let me declare, despite ChatGPT, teachers still matter. We all agree on this. And I believe, Madam Speaker, if you ask ChatGPT, it will agree also. In fact, I did. I asked it. I said, with the proliferation of artificial intelligence, do teachers matter? And in an instance, it said yes. Teachers continue to be essential even with the proliferation of artificial intelligence, while AI, as it's commonly known, can provide a wealth of information and support, it cannot replace the human connections that teachers provide. And I invite you to ask that same question of ChatGPT. Madam Speaker, the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission report agrees as well that teachers matter, but it calls on our teachers to matter in a different way than we're used to. It calls on teachers to throw out the method of teaching that creates passive students and make a radical shift to a collaborative interaction between teachers, students, and the curriculum or the content, and as much as possible, include the supportive role of parents and other caregivers. Madam Speaker, the report applauds the national standard curriculum that the education sector uses, but it calls on us to better prepare and train teachers and students to use it and to pay much more attention to social and emotional learning as we roll out our STEM education or our STEAM education, which is our science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics education. Madam Speaker, we salute the 1,000 plus new teachers from all our teachers' colleges who were gathered at the Jamaica University College recently to receive their welcome into the profession. And you can see some pictures of that on the screen. Overall, Madam Speaker, our teachers' colleges have a total of 4,255 teachers in training across the 4 years. We know that UWI and UTech also train teachers as well. We welcome the latest public education institution, VTDI, that is tasked with expanding the cadre of TVET teachers for our schools as we expand TVET into our primary schools. Madam Speaker, in UNICEF's August 2022 report entitled Teachers Assess and Reimagine Jamaica's Education System, 87.1% of teachers either strongly agreed or agreed that despite the issues confronting education and the socio-economic issues and challenges facing Jamaica which impact the education system, they are still passionate about teaching. We want to acknowledge not just our new teachers, but all our in-service teachers as well. And that is why today, Madam Speaker, I am happy to report that 5,045 postcodes have been approved by Cabinet for classroom teachers, senior teachers, master teachers, health and family life education teachers, numeracy specialists, teachers' aides, teachers' assistants, and non-academic staff who have been teaching or working in the education system for many years without security of tenure, some for 5, 10, or more years. They will be regularized at last. We're doing the finalization of the data, and then letters will be prepared. This is a major cleanup for the education sector. In the past, it has only been that on getting to retirement, that a teacher may find out that they have been working in a job without a postcode. To regularize at that time is most time-consuming and frustrating. With the new technology platforms we have, we should not get to this place again, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I turn now to technology and infrastructure, significant pillars of education transformation. Earlier, Madam Speaker, in recounting my beginning days at the Ministry of Education and Youth in 2020, it was meant to give context and to remind us of where we were in the education sector then, the digital divide was very wide, wider than the Black River in St. Elizabeth. As you know, Madam Speaker, the digital divide is the unequal access to digital technology, including smartphones, tablets, laptops, and the internet. Today, Madam Speaker, in 2023, with the enormous efforts of this government, we are eliminating that digital divide. We are ensuring that our students, regardless of their socio-economic background, are fully equipped with devices, have access to e-resources, including e-textbooks, which are now included in our procurement, that they have computer labs in all of our secondary schools, right, as with new laptops and proper broadband connectivity. And you will see on the screen the schools that are already connected onto the government's fiber infrastructure. The other picture shows the schools that are planned to be connected in fiscal 23-24. And if you overlay the two together, a total of 438 schools are currently connected, and 252 are projected to be connected this fiscal year, for a total of 690 primary and high schools, or 68% of the total, and the work continues. This has been possible through the concentrated, combined, and focused efforts of the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation by way of NWA, Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology through eGov, eLearning, USF, and the parent ministry, the Ministry of Education and Youth, and the National ICT Authority Council. Madam Speaker, we meet at 5 p.m. every Wednesday to ensure the work is on track for completion. That's the commitment of the persons involved. I applaud each and every one of them. They faithfully show up. Sometimes we're in the virtual meeting until 7 p.m. or after. That is dedication to ensure that our technology infrastructure gets rolled out to our schools. The chart you're looking at on the screen just shows you the bandwidth utilization of the schools that are on the system. No one can deny, Madam Speaker, the efforts of this government to ensure our students, our teachers, and our schools have the enabling environment for the rapid build-out of the 21st century skills that are so required. We're doing it, Madam Speaker. Coding in school got off to a good start. We hit a little bump, but we're regrouping. To date, we have 769 teachers who are fully trained in delivering coding skills, 497 at the primary level and 272 at the secondary level. There are 32 high schools that are integrating and delivering coding programs currently. Other achievements include the development of a framework for the integration of coding in the national standards curriculum. Madam Speaker, as of May 12, 2023, eLearning reported that it delivered 16,053 e-vouchers for laptops to our teachers in primary and secondary schools. So far, 14,251 teachers have redeemed their vouchers. This is the effort of this government. Madam Speaker, we have loads of e-resources, applications. Teachers have access to lesson plan banks with over 500 lessons ready-made for them and already mapped to the national standards curriculum, which they can tailor to meet the needs of the students in the classroom. We've made 500,000 Microsoft license available to our students and teachers, those in community colleges, teachers' colleges, for them to simply download and use. Our students and teachers are encouraged to sign in using their MOE school's email and follow the instructions that are there. I want to say, Madam Speaker, that no student who's doing school-based assessment, SBA, currently should be complaining that they don't have access to Word. Madam Speaker, additionally, our implementing partner, e-learning, confirmed that as of May 15th, 9,298 high-quality laptops have been delivered to 173 high schools to replace aged computers in their computer labs. And I have a quick example of the handover that I did at my alma mater. You will see us cutting the ribbon to go into the computer lab. Then you get into the computer lab, you see the ribbon on the computers, but more importantly, Madam Speaker, it's a picture of the students who are using those labs that we celebrate. Madam Speaker, if I'm overly dwelling on technology, it is because study after study is telling us that our students require digital skills. Here are two such studies. There's one from National Skills Coalition. They use data from 43 million online job postings to assess digital skills. The findings reveal that the vast majority of jobs now require some type of digital skill. Technology in the Workplace Statistics 2023 said, today about 50% of jobs need employees to have technology skills, but it is estimated that by 2030, 75% will have such requirement. Madam Speaker, in 7 years, the children graduating from primary schools today will be the new entrants into the workforce or into higher education. So are we in a hurry to get our children or students fully equipped with access to technology? Yes, but let me hasten to say that technology is only a part of the broader STEAM plus socio-emotional education that all of our students must have. Last week, Madam Speaker, I visited a classroom at Jamaica College, a classroom of third formers. They were being given a demo of a technology that we have great hopes for in our classrooms. These third formers received a lesson on the human eye anatomy from a master teacher for science from not Jamaica College, but Immaculate Conception High School. The master teacher for science was in the virtual space. The students were in their physical classroom with a teacher's aide and the electronic board. The third formers engaged with the master teachers as they learned about the anatomy of the eye. The students were excited at the possibilities. So I want us to think about this for a while. The master teacher for science from Immaculate Conception High School could easily be engaging with students from, let's say, Holy Trinity High School, as I look at MP Williams. The Jamaica Education Transformation Commission report calls on us to use technology to transform education. We have started, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I turn now to school infrastructure, which is an important part of education transformation. Many of our schools were constructed many decades ago, and they served their purpose then. Today, we need a new vision of school infrastructure, and we have to set out to rebuild or remake our schools that have fallen behind in their infrastructure development. It is not beyond us, Madam Speaker. It will take time, but we want Jamaicans to keep this vision in mind. Our aspirations are for our schools to be architecturally pleasing, with lots of natural light streaming into the classrooms, for classrooms to have cooling or air conditioning powered by renewable energy, of which we have plenty during school days, for there to be calming colors, pleasing classroom furniture, and electronic boards rather than blackboards. Our schools should have properly equipped playfields for football and cricket and netball and track and field. There can be other amenities such as tennis courts or swimming pools as alumni groups see fit, but there must be a minimum provided by the government for all schools. Right. And I wish you could see those pictures better. They capture the essence of that vision. Madam Speaker, I know we already have schools with that vision right here in Jamaica, but just a few. We want a major transformation of our schools' infrastructure, Madam Speaker. In the meantime, while we hold that vision in our minds and are working towards it. Okay, this is Norman Gardens Infant School. Union Gardens Infant School. That's a picture there. That is a picture of a school in another country that I visited, and so on. You can see the pictures as they scroll through. So, Madam Speaker, in the meantime, while we hold this vision in our minds and are working towards it, we know we have to attend to the immediate maintenance needs of schools now in 2023. So, Madam Speaker, for the first time, we are publishing a listing of all the maintenance, all the fencing, all the electrical repairs or major infrastructure work that we did last year, what's underway currently, and what is expected in this fiscal year. The infrastructure budget of the Ministry of Education and Youth for fencing, electrical work, emergency maintenance, larger infrastructure work is roughly $1.5 billion this fiscal year to help us to keep the existing schools functional. And so when you get your report, you will see that there are many pages that list electrical upgrading projects across 49 schools for a total of $244 million. The construction of security fencing projects for 56 schools, the budget there is $73 million. Many pages speak to what was done last year. 130 schools had critical maintenance and infrastructure work for a total of $305 million. For the upcoming, for this year that we're in, the budgetary allocation is $440 million. Additionally, the National Education Trust, NET, has provided the details of all the major infrastructure work. So, for example, we know that Black River High, which achieved practical completion in February of this year. We still have some work going on there in terms of their wastewater treatment, but when that is completed, that school will be able to be removed from the shift system for the upcoming academic year. Bridgeport High is another school. Cabinet approval was received, and a letter of award is to be issued to the contractor. And you will see the details, many pages of it in the report. We want our schools to know exactly where the resources are being spent, how far along is it, so that they can follow along. Because many times we hear nothing is going on, but a lot is going on, and we want to put this information out there so that our schools and all of Jamaica can know that it's happening. So I won't, Madam Speaker, since it's printed, I won't go through it. It's a lot, many pages, as I said, in the report of maintenance, capital works, and our plans for the STEM schools that are in our future. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education and Youth serves 1,010 public primary and secondary schools, 7 educational regions, 14 agencies, 10 divisions. Collectively, we all cater to over 410,000 students, 25,700 teachers and principals, supported by caregivers, administrative and ancillary staff across the sector and institutions. When we include the 107,000 children in the early childhood sector, you can see that those numbers increase significantly. Then you add tertiary, and you'll see the enormity of the education sector in our context. Madam Speaker, the recurrent budget of the Ministry of Education and Youth for this fiscal year, 2023-24, is $143.6 billion, compared to $118.5 billion in fiscal 21-22. Compensation of employees account for $101.2 billion, up from $80.2. Across the 7 regions, our regional directors continue to give leadership to the heavy lifting required to organize, scan, and upload the electronic versions of mountains of paper files into the government's MyHR platform to enable greater efficiencies and ease the burden on our teachers, especially when they want to have their pay advice or a job letter, or they want to see how accurate is the information that the Ministry of Education and Youth has about their service in the sector. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the ministry is moving to implement the government financial management system in schools. We are getting set up to have a pilot done, and this will help us to improve the management of the finances in school. Madam Speaker, it goes without saying, but I will say it anyways. The ministry is committed to the transformation of education. As was announced last year, the Prime Minister named an Education Transformation Oversight Committee, ETOC. During the course of the past year, working with the head of ETOC, Dr. Adrian Stokes, the ministry began the process of implementing recommendations from the report. We meet weekly. Partners that we brought on board include Mona School of Business that has been helping the ministry to develop a costed implementation plan and a monitoring and evaluation learning framework. We've had a number of consultations with wide-ranging stakeholder groups before and after the draft plan and framework. The groups include principals, teachers, students, civil society groups, international development partners, and the private sector to get their views as we seek to decide the best means for implementation and the requisite resources, including human, financial, technology, among others. Madam Speaker, we're working towards a successful implementation process, as education is a foundation on which all our creative and innovative skills are built, and the one which prepares our young people for the world of work and for life. A transformed education sector will undoubtedly contribute to a transformed Jamaican society. Yes. To this end, the Ministry's mission of transformation must and will be predicated on providing a high-quality administrative system that is responsive and effective, and one that has greater accountability and relevance. It must be predicated on people who buy into and practice the tenets of respect, efficiency, high-quality customer service, just to name a few traits. Madam Speaker, the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission report was 2021 is divided into 7 broad thematic areas with over 190 recommendations. I'm sure if you read it, depending on how you count it, there could be more. But those 7 broad thematic areas are: 1, governance, administration, leadership, and legislation. Number 2, early childhood education. Number 3, curriculum teaching and teacher training. Number 4, the tertiary sector. Number 5, TVET in Jamaica. And it's interesting because this morning I gave the opening remarks at a TVET conference here in Jamaica, a regional TVET conference here in Jamaica. And the 6th broad thematic area is infrastructure and technology, and the 7th area is finance. Under governance, administration, leadership, and legislation, it speaks to how our school boards are chosen, how decisions are made, the administrative efficiency, and the legislative agenda. In the crosshairs for serious amendments is the Education Act and regulations. Madam Speaker, I can report that substantial work has been completed on the amendments for the Education Act to the point of a working draft of the legislative proposal and a draft cabinet submission. Obviously, this will come to the Parliament and to be debated, but we want Jamaicans to know that significant work has been happening. I know sometimes when you're building a house, if you show people the land where you're going to build it, and they pass there every day for a year, they might not see anything, not knowing that there's a lot of groundwork that has to be done before they can begin to see the work. So I'm just saying, in the education sector, much is happening, and in time we will see the manifestation of that. Madam Speaker, over the last 3 decades, our people, our Jamaican people, have become much more appreciative of the importance of the early years in a child's education. Indeed, all of us can acknowledge that whatever learning gaps we see at the primary and secondary school level can be traced to the inadequate support in the early years. Madam Speaker, this year, for the first time, we did an assessment of 27,179 four-year-old students, four-year-old children, to see what intervention was needed, if any, in the lives of these children. And the assessment told us that of that 27,179, 17,000 or 63% of our four-year-olds are deemed okay, not needing any intervention. But you have almost, well, a little over 10,000 four-year-olds that we're going to have to monitor in class because learning and behavioral problems are evident. It means we have to provide additional trained practitioners for the monitoring or individual intervention that is needed. And of course, there's significantly more drill down that we can do into the data. However, it is clear that the data are alerting us to the early actions we must take if we want to arrest the problem of children leaving primary school and not being able to read at the grade 6 level. And again, I wish you could see the screen more clearly, but this assessment drills down into behavior, socio-emotional, early literacy, early numeracy. We have a lot of work ahead of us with this cohort of four-year-olds. Madam Speaker, even as we strengthen the foundation of early childhood education, we're doing the same at the primary level, because that is where the rubber really meets the road. Through the efforts of the National STEM for Growth Committee, the private sector will be working with the Ministry of Education and Youth and other players to build out the STEM ecosystem in Jamaica. This will see a tighter synergy between the education and the private sector in terms of improvements in infrastructure, pedagogical skills of teachers, and resources for the teaching and learning process. Madam Speaker, while we support all schools, we have about 25% of the sector that needs deliberate or targeted attention. We've been doing that, but significantly more is needed. Going forward, these schools will get added attention in the areas of leadership support, instructional learning support, learning resources, and more funding as we recognize their special situation. Madam Speaker, Leadership for Safer Schools, funded by the European Union Spotlight Initiative, is designed to support school leaders in creating safe environments that will reduce school-related and gender-based violence. This course was designed on the premise that interventions to reduce gender-based violence must be grounded in behavior change, brought about by the development of non-threatening school environments where the rights of children are respected and promoted. Some 58 school leaders have been trained thus far, and the work continues. In the area of restorative justice practices, I know that Minister Chuck in his presentation talked about it, and I have to acknowledge him for the work that his ministry has been doing to provide restorative practice training to parents, educators, and students of 207 public primary and secondary schools. At the end of March 2023, over 5,000 stakeholders in the education system were trained in restorative justice. And, you know, Madam Speaker, as you know, restorative practice training is committed to equip stakeholders in the education system with conflict management skills as a strategy to reduce the incidence of violence in schools. For this fiscal year, Madam Speaker, both ministries are committed to train an additional, are you ready for this number, Minister? 30,000 students and educators from 500 public schools. We have an MOU between us that is guiding us. But it has been working. We have been working. We have been working. There are other initiatives, Madam Speaker, to help us in our schools to ensure that our children receive the assistance that they need to improve the social, behavioral, and academic outputs. Yes, especially for those students in schools where this is, that are in environments that give rise to this. Some 25,000 students from 19 primary schools, 14 high schools are targeted to benefit from this intervention under the Government of Jamaica's Citizen Security Program. And these are primarily schools in our Zozo area. The Ministry of National Security and other stakeholders conceptualized the 25 to 34 school strategy to provide targeted interventions in the 7 Zozo communities. And I thank the Ministry of National Security for the dedication, their staying power to help us to ensure that we have safe schools, yes, all around us in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, the Ministry, in collaboration with the Citizen Security Secretariat and the European Union, recently launched the Literacy Education Acceleration Program, LEAP. Again, this is part of the Citizen Security Plan of Jamaica, developed as part of the national approach to provide support and opportunity to our most vulnerable students in our zones of special operation. So the 3 vital areas of focus for the strategy are behavior, literacy, and attendance. We have seen significant results from the pilot of this literacy intervention. And so we look forward to rolling out this into other schools and seeing the same results. Madam Speaker, the National Parenting Support Commission has a number of initiatives to guide, to ignite increased parental involvement in the academic lives of their children. So far, we currently have 332 parent monitors across parishes of Jamaica, and that number is growing. We use technology with applications like the Stay Connected app. There are parent places across Jamaica. They're a one-stop shop where parents can gather to learn, share information, and connect to community resources. There are parenting education sessions to which parents can come. A total of 24,000, almost 25,000 parents have benefited to date from parenting education sessions. And of course, there are 2 helplines. These continue to respond to the various levels of parental need. Madam Speaker, we launched Civics in Schools curriculum on December 13, 2022. At the time when we did the survey, only 93 of the 1,010 schools offered civics at all in our schools. Today, that number is 291, and the number of schools is increasing. Madam Speaker, in my last sectoral, I spoke to the need to increase the number of students involved in our uniform groups, to give them a cause bigger than themselves. Yes. I am pleased to report that enrollment in uniform groups has increased by 55%, surpassing the pre-COVID-19 levels. Then, pre-COVID, there was about 14,000 students. Today, we're over 21,000 students. And of significance, Madam Speaker, we are seeing adults volunteering to be trained to help lead these uniform groups. They are to be commended. In the area of nutritional support, Madam Speaker, the government continues to provide more funding for children from our most vulnerable households, those on path. For this fiscal year, the aim is to feed 180,000 students.
Madam Speaker, for the purpose of Hansard, we wish to ask for the retroactive suspension of the standing orders of the items on the agenda so that we can continue hearing the contribution of the Minister of Education and Youth to the sectoral debate. And also ask for the approval of the Honorable House to enable her to continue her contribution for an additional 15 minutes or so in order to allow her to complete her presentation. Thank you.
Members, there are two questions before the House. The first question is for the retroactive suspension of the items on the agenda to be suspended to bring us straight to public business, which enabled us to hear the Minister and for her completion. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. And the other question is for the Minister, permission for the Minister to be given 15 minutes or so. And I think the two important words here are "or so" to complete her presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the government continues to provide more funding for children from our most vulnerable households through PATH. For this fiscal year, the aim is to feed 180,000 students, and you can see on the screen how that will be divided up among the early childhood institutions, infant to grade 3 at the primary level, primary up to grade 9, secondary schools and wards of the state. Madam Speaker, there has been an increase in the rates given to schools at all levels. And the table shows the prior rates and the current rates. So the number of feeding days for the academic year will remain 190, which is the number of school days in the academic year. The increase took effect April 1, 2023. Of note, the funding is dispersed to schools to provide cooked lunches for students on the basis that once meals are prepared in large quantities, the schools will reap the benefits of economy of scale. Madam Speaker, I know I've heard many comments about the amount per child. However, when you look at the quantum that the government is providing, It's almost $9 billion for our school feeding program. And this represents, in this fiscal year, an increase of $2 billion over prior years. And Madam Speaker, NPL also continues to provide the breakfast or the snack component of the school feeding program. And I have samples of what NPL provides to our children for all of our MPs today. So you can sample. You will get it at the end of Parliament. I've had it. It's good. Yes. Nutribon is low sugar. It's very tasty. And we have low sugar drink and water in our schools. So I invite you to sample. Yes. Madam Speaker, you'll get it at the close. For the 2022-2023 academic year, funds were disbursed to all secondary schools to support teaching and assessment of all TVET programs. Of note, grants were also disbursed to 2 special education institutions, Windsor School of Special Education and Edge Hill School of Special Education. We have developed a 3-year TVET expansion plan to include, Madam Speaker, primary schools. We are going to be equipping and modernizing our TVET labs, providing more teacher training and development, more effective monitoring and evaluation and support for teaching and learning. The good news is, Madam Speaker, our budget this year is approximately $400 million to support TVET in our schools, which is technical and vocational education and training. Madam Speaker, as the process of transformation continues for the education sector, we look forward to working with the National Council on Technical and Vocational Education and Training and the Vocational Training Development Institute, VTDI, that is now a public educational institution with the awesome responsibility for growing the cadre of teachers of TVET in the education system. And there are some pictures of graduation. Madam Speaker, I must this afternoon touch on the Sixth Form Pathways program. An important publication recently said that Jamaica has made a significant step in effectively raising the school leaving age to 18 years of age. This aligns with the most advanced TVET and education systems. Madam Speaker, 24,245 students are enrolled this academic year in the Sixth Form Pathways program, a 21% increase over the figure last year. We will continue to monitor and look for new ways to engage students, especially those in the tertiary space who have demonstrated the aptitude for managing a more flexible arrangement where they can continue their education while being part of the workforce on a part-time basis. Currently, Madam Speaker, the program is offered in 167 high schools and 40 tertiary/post-secondary centers. The students benefit from continued educational opportunities under Pathways 1, 2, 3. All students, Madam Speaker, have the opportunity to pursue maths and English at CSEC or City and Guilds if they were not initially successful at grade 11. Each student enrolled in the Sixth Form Pathways program is also provided with the opportunity to complete training and certification in customer service. In addition, Madam Speaker, high school cadets, upon reaching grade 12, will have access to the Caribbean Vocational Qualification Cadetting Infantry Level 3 course. Madam Speaker, the Hospitality and Tourism Management Program is a 2-year course in 14 of our high schools currently. This is a joint initiative between the Ministry of Education and Youth and the Ministry of Tourism. This summer, a 4-week internship opportunity with Sandals Group has been arranged for the students, and 2 weeks industry furlough for their teachers. These opportunities will no doubt increase the capacity of teachers to deliver the program to international standards while ensuring that students are sufficiently exposed to industry practice. We thank the Ministry of Tourism for partnering with us to enable these opportunities for continued human capacity development and nation building. Madam Speaker, the Work Experience Program has been expanded to include students pursuing occupational courses at grades 10 and 11 in all secondary level institutions offering pathways 2 and 3. This is mission critical to the strengthening of the industry exposure requirements for skills acquisition and preparedness for the work world. Presently, Madam Speaker, 98 high schools across all 7 regions participate in the Work Experience Program. At the end of the fiscal year 2022-2023, almost 10,000 students completed 80 hours of work experience in public and private sector entities. Madam Speaker, let me just switch gears now to talking about our children and youth, the Children and Youth Division. The ministry is committed to ensuring the well-being, holistic development, and safety of our children and youth. I am pleased to announce that Cabinet has approved the development of a national children's policy. It will provide a comprehensive framework in relation to children's issues in Jamaica by bringing together the relevant existing policies, national plan of action and programs, and to provide a framework for the development and coordination of new policies, programs, and legislation. Additionally, Madam Speaker, work continues on our national plan of action for an integrated response to children and violence. This is Jamaica's commitment towards ending all forms of violence against children. Against this background, several pieces of legislation are at different stages of review and amendment, including the Child Care and Protection Act and Regulation. We have a draft cabinet submission to seek approval to issue drafting instructions to the Chief Parliamentary Council. The Child Care and Protection Act, Section 24, Cabinet has already issued approval for drafting instructions to the Chief Parliamentary Council, and the amendment is currently underway. The Children Adoption of Act, the Cabinet submission has been drafted and has been circulated for stakeholders' comment. Children Guardianship and Custody Act. The review of this legislation will ultimately result in a repeal and replacement of the Act. A lot of work is going on it currently. Madam Speaker, many things are also taking place in our interaction with our youth stakeholders, and here are a few. We have increased the number of mobile youth innovation centers across communities, and we have been having a host of job fairs, youth jam sessions dealing with various topics such as personal development, dealing with hurt. We've been doing resume writing, stress management, and so on. We've been providing referrals, counseling, training for many of our young people. When we tallied the results, over 3,500 young people have attended these sessions. Of course, Youth Month continues to be a staple on the calendar of activities. Over 10,000 young people participated in the various activities. The National Youth Parliament of Jamaica is another very important event for young people, and that happened last November. We continue to highlight and award our young people through the flagship Prime Minister National Youth Awards for excellence. Madam Speaker, the Child Protection and Family Services Agency continues to play a critical role in supervising children in state care and responding to critical incidents involving the welfare of children across the nation. Too many of our children are abused by adults who should be looking out for their welfare. The CPFSA has begun to target communities for early intervention. Madam Speaker, we're pleased to announce the practical completion of the Maxfield Park Therapeutic Center, which will increase the CPFSA's capacity to respond to the increasing demand for psychological services for children in care and those who access the services presenting with mild to severe mental and behavioral challenges. Our partner in the construction of this center is JISTV. Madam Speaker, I could not end my presentation without touching on the work of the National College for Educational Leadership, NCEL. It continues to provide a suite of training programs for principals in the education system to improve their capacity to lead our educational institutions. Additionally, Madam Speaker, I must highlight our several legacy policies for which we have spent the time to do the consultations island-wide with approximately 5,000 persons. These policies are at different stages of readiness, and I will list them because I want Jamaicans to know that there's work going on the student dress and grooming policy, the special education policy, the national safe school policy, the national school nutrition policy, the language policy, and the higher education policy. Madam Speaker, two additional entities, the National Education Inspectorate and the National Council on Education. The Jamaica Education Transformation Commission report calls on the National Education Inspectorate to not only do its normal assessment of schools, but to incorporate the value-added model for assessing schools. To date, 150 schools have been assessed using this methodology. NEI now has to increase the understanding of this methodology to our schools and to help them to utilize the data. Madam Speaker, among the important functions of the National Council on Education is the appointment, training, and ongoing support of school boards. In June of last year, we launched the School Boards Minutes platform for our boards to upload minutes. In keeping with the accountability framework, boards are now required to confirm minutes of board meetings as part of a wider strategy to support schools in their quest to improve. And we're seeing our schools adapt to this, and as we go forward, I am sure we will see greater usage of this platform. The NCE also acts as policy guidance for the Minister of Education and Youth, and I want to thank the outgoing council for the work that they did during the COVID times, for the research that they have done and presented to me It has helped in our decision making. Madam Speaker, in the tertiary sector, we have a number of entities there that have been working silently to ensure that legislation gets done and the entities in the tertiary sector operate well. Our tertiary sector has well over 100,000 students. We know that tertiary education delivers better job prospects and higher wages. We know that there are many who would like to pursue tertiary degrees, but can't necessarily scale the financing hurdle, meaning they need funding not just to pay tuition, but also to pay room and board and other costs. We're in the process of completing a policy for tertiary education that speaks to funding of tertiary. Madam Speaker, we want our tertiary sector to forge stronger ties with businesses, to understand the needs of businesses so there's better alignment with those they are graduating and the job market. And I particularly, and I hope I don't get into trouble for doing this, for singling out CMU. It is a school that has recovered quite nicely and is beginning to just graduating students. Yes, yes. We want to see our tertiary sector identifying. We want to see our tertiary sector identifying and solving more of society's problems with their innovations. Not to be left out, Madam Speaker, our community colleges continue to provide opportunities for young people, with the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica serving a regulatory function for the Occupational Associate Degree Program and the Sixth Form Pathways Program. Madam Speaker, I will end where I started. I'm gratified that we have done the work to sort out the 5,045 postcodes for our classroom teachers, senior teachers, master teachers, health and family life teachers, numeracy teachers, non-academic staff who've been working in the education system, some for many years without security of tenure. We welcome the 1,000 plus new teachers to the education sector. Teachers matter. We're spreading the philosophy of collaborative interaction between teachers, students, and the curriculum or the content to ensure widespread acceptance. It can deliver students who are able to read, write, and understand more than simple sentences. We are working on and will complete the licensing regime for teachers. We have and will continue to recognize and reward excellent teachers. Technology and infrastructure are a major focus. We have a new vision for the design of our schools. We have and will continue to roll out broadband connectivity to our schools. Having completed the upgrade of all computer labs in all of our high schools, we turn now to upgrading the TVET labs. The budget is $400 million this fiscal year. Yes. Thank you. Under the TVET expansion plan, 55 schools will be specifically targeted for increased funding and resourcing to ensure students are exposed to industry standards. Madam Speaker, coding in school is being scaled up. We commit all our efforts to the 10,018 4-year-olds that have been identified as needing support to prevent them from struggling in primary and high schools in the years ahead. Madam Speaker, we commit to reinstituting all those things we know that worked, but were interrupted by COVID-19, and we have a list of them. we commit to ensure that we provide more mental health support, whether in the form of telecounseling, fully funded clinical services, increased posts in the school for those professionals, and establishment of the student support team approach at the school level. For special education support, we have to work on the infrastructure there as well, assessment, placement, and teaching and learning support. You heard the additional $2 billion the government provided to the school feeding program this year, and you've heard of the success that we're having in having our students join a uniform group. Madam Speaker, we continue to maintain our coordinated behavior management support with other ministries to help us in our schools. Madam Speaker, I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute to the progress of transformation of education in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, we are committed to the value proposition of education, which is to prepare our students for whatever the future may bring.
Here, here.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. God bless Jamaica. Thank you, Lord.
Madam Speaker, excellent presentation by our Minister of Education, and I'm really happy to be on the team with her. Madam Speaker, at this point I will ask for the recommittal. No, in fact, I now ask that the sectoral debate be suspended.
Just before we suspend this debate, I too want to join with saying we congratulate the Minister for her very informative presentation, because it certainly indicates to Jamaica all the things that have been taking place, the advancement in education, despite sometimes what meets the public eye. And I'm claiming special privilege this evening, as I want to make special mention of our regional director for the Ministry of Education and Information in Region 4, who is also another Westwood, a past student of Westwood. She's excellent, she helps us, and we're delighted to have you here with us this afternoon. And the Minister has indicated, if you're not rushing away, students, she'll be quite happy to take the picture with you outside that she was not able to take before we started. Members, the question before the House is that there is a suspension of the sectoral debate. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The sectoral debate is suspended. And the other question is that we revert to the items on the agenda, starting with statements by ministers. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this year, National Labor Day will be observed on Tuesday, May 23, 2023, culminating Workers' Week, which started on Sunday, May 14, and which was launched by Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, on May 2nd at Jamaica House. The theme and focus of Labor Day and Workers' Week 2023 is Plant a Tree for Life, promoting climate change mitigation, food security, and road safety. The invaluable contribution of the workers of Jamaica is also being recognized during Workers' Week. The focus for Labor Day 2023 was born out of the Forestry Department's National Tree Initiative to plant 3 million trees in 3 years. Launched on October 4, 2019 by the Most Honorable Prime Minister, the objective is to support national development in the areas of climate change and national reforestation in order to increase forest cover and establish high-value urban green spaces for all Jamaicans. The drive towards the 3 million tree target was slowed down by COVID-19 pandemic and is currently at 2.5 million. The plan now is to use Labor Day 2023 to reignite the nation to strive for the 3 million goal by summer of 2023 through the planting of trees for Labor Day and onward, which will bolster the target that we had strived to achieve. So the planting of trees, we will see some popular trees being planted in parishes as well as some endemic trees in other parishes. Just want to mention quickly the trees and the parishes where the focus will be. For St. Thomas, we're looking at the breadfruit. Portland, the watermaho. St. Mary, Anato. St. Anne, the Santa Maria. Trelawney, the gold spoon. St. James, the cotton tree. Hanover, the red nickel. Westmoreland, the royal palm. St. Elizabeth, the logwood. Manchester, the spicewood. Kingston, the yellow pui. St. Andrew, the West Indian mahogany. Clarendon, the Brasiletto. St. Catherine, the lignum vitae. And in Portmore, which we're treating as a separate parish, the scarlet cordia. Within the focus to plant trees this Labor Day, Jamaicans will also be encouraged to start or refresh their backyard gardens and have their projects registered with the National Labor Day Secretariat via the GIS website. Schools are also being encouraged to either spruce up or start school gardens. The Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA, and other agencies in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries will assist participants with seedlings to get these gardens up and running. Labor Day will also be used to highlight the importance of road safety. The high levels of road fatalities continues to be of major concern and can only be lowered with the concerted effort of all Jamaicans, as most of the fatalities are avoidable. During Workers' Week, a number of activities took place. On Monday, we saw the mounting of Workers' Week display at the Ministry of Labor and Social Security on North Street. Yesterday, Tuesday, May 16, a floral tribute ceremony was held in honor of Aggie Bernard at the Workers' Monument at the Kingston Craft Market. And the ceremony was led by the permanent secretaries in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security and Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. That's Mrs. Colette Roberts-Risden and Mr. Denzel Thorpe, respectively. Tomorrow, Thursday, May 18, there will be a floral tribute to former Prime Minister, the late Hugh Lawson Shearer, whose centenary we will be celebrating this year. And this tribute will be held at the National Heroes Park. And I should highlight that there is a major difference between a floral tribute and a wreath laying. Floral tribute is when we celebrate the anniversary of the birth of an individual, and a wreath laying is when we treat with the passing of an individual, or we do not know the individual's date of birth, and so we have a wreath laying like Samsha. There will also be a cultural day at Workers' Park in Frome, Westmoreland, starting at 10 a.m. On Friday, May 19, the Labor Relations Awards banquet will be hosted by the Minister of Labor and Social Security at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. And then on Sunday, this Sunday, the Workers' Week church service will be held at the Church of the Open Bible, Washington Boulevard, starting at 10 a.m. On Labor Day itself, the activities will commence with the wreath-laying ceremony at the Shrine of the Right Excellent Sam Sharp in Heroes Park and at his statue in Sam Sharp Square, Montego Bay. The National Labor Day project will be the National Tree Planting exercise along Highway 2000 in the vicinity of Heartlands. The target for the national project is to plant 10,000 trees on that day. So groups from corporate Jamaica, as well as other civil society groups, schools among others, are invited to participate in the tree planting exercise. Entry to the work site will be via Heartlands Road from Old Harbour Road. There will be no access from the highway. The national project will again be led by the Prime Minister, and he will be joined by the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Mark Golding, other portfolio ministers, and members of civil society. Now, the project, and I'd like you all to listen carefully, the project is being arranged in plots of approximately half hectare in size. Corporate entities with large groups of 50, and members of parliament in St. Catherine with large groups of 50 are being asked to come, and you will be assigned a plot. And you will be able to brand your plot for the day. You'll be able to provide hospitality, and you will be able to entertain volunteers who will be planting the plots. I was checking this morning to see if we can make the Guinness Book of World Record. I understand that the maximum number of trees that have been planted in one day has been 23,000. So we are hoping to plant 25,000 across the national project and across the parishes, right across Jamaica, so we can make the Guinness Book of Record. And in fact, as we speak, the Director of Research in the ministry is speaking to Guinness about that. So the Forestry Department, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, will make thousands of trees available to organizations and the general public across Jamaica. And this will include popular trees grown in each parish. And as we say, when work done, come have some fun. As is customary, the Labor Day concert will be held at Emancipation Park, starting at 7 p.m. It will end at 10 p.m. It will be a gospel concert, and it will feature a large number of gospel artists, including Kevin Downswell, Richard Stephen, who has a collab with Kevin Downswell, as well as with Kukudu, who will also be appearing, and Minister Howdy. The planning and administration of Labor Day and Workers' Week falls under the purview of the National Labor Day Secretariat, which operates out of my ministry, the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport. But this year, where in the past we have had 2 other partners, this year we have 4 partners, ministries participating, and that is in addition to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security and the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, which has responsibility for the participation of the municipalities, we have this year the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, which has provided kits for backyard gardens and greenhouses in homes and schools, and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, with a special role to identify the location for and lead the national tree planting event on Labor Day with logistical support from the Jamaica Defense Force, and also providing plans to parishes, working closely with the municipalities to sustain the program. In addition to the 5 lead ministries, all other ministries and ministers are supporting the effort in specific areas with ministers, permanent secretaries, agency heads, members of parliament, councillors, churches, civil society, and private sector leading the charge in their respective areas. For example, we're asking the Ministry of Education, tree planting and greenhouses, and to lead the charge with the schools, Ministry of Finance and Planning to planting of trees at premises under their control. Similarly with the Ministry of Science and Technology, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. In fact, they're doing some of their tree planting. In fact, they started their tree planting today because they had a team from CARICOM, and they've actually led a team to do one of each tree that is being planted across the parishes, to plant those at Jamaica House today. Of course, the new ministry, the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Ministry of National Security, and the Ministry of Transport and Mining, they're all asked and they're all mobilized to participate and to lead the charge in their respective areas. The Jamaica Information Service will again host the online registration of parish projects and national projects, as well as collate and publish regular updates on project registration during Workers' Week and up to Labor Day. Online registration to participate in the National Labor Day project and the tree planting on Highway 2000 is also being hosted by the JIS on its website. And the link, of course, is jis.gov.jm, jis-pages/labor-day-registration. You just go to the website and you can register. I also just want to highlight the fact that as this year is Mr. Shearer's, the former Prime Minister, late Honorable Hugh Shearer's centenary, there'll be a series of activities planned over the year to celebrate his centenary. And that in June, we will, in collaboration with the Labor Studies Unit at the university, be hosting the Hugh Shearer Centenary Lecture. I want to indicate here that we're distributing the information. We have a list of schools that have been identified by the 4-H clubs where there will be direct support on Labor Day for 14 schools. Glen Stewart Primary in St. Elizabeth, Friendship Brook Primary in Cane River St. Andrew, Robbins Bay Primary, St. Mary's, St. Margaret's Bay Primary, Portland, Hayes Primary School in Clarendon, Broadleaf Primary in Manchester, Trinityville Primary School in Trinityville St. Thomas, Clarkstown Primary in Clarkstown Trelawney, Petersville Primary School, White House Westmoreland, Roehampton Primary in Anchovy St. James, Michael Practicing Primary and Junior High in Kingston, Crystal House Jamaica in Spanish Town St. Catherine, Cayville Primary in Hanover, and Clydesdale Primary in St. Anne. This is a short list of schools that the 4-H clubs have identified for Labor Day, but there's a longer list of schools that we will continue the program after Labor Day to ensure that gardens and greenhouses are established in those schools. And of course, plants are being made available by the Forestry Department and the Ministry of Labor. And I'd mentioned the plants earlier, but in addition to that, we have fruit trees such as guava, apple, naseberry, cashew, soursop, sweetsop, pomegranate or pomegranate, guinea, cherry, June plum. So you can get your plants, you get in touch with RADA, you get in touch with the Forestry Department, and you will be provided with these trees. I want to remind you all that the tree under which you shade at times was planted by someone. And that is why you're able to go under a tree, a shady tree. So the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And so I'm asking all my colleagues, Madam Speaker, through you, Mr. Speaker, through you, that you all mobilize, go out there. This is an opportunity for you to really mobilize your constituents to go out there and plant a tree. It's your legacy. Pardon? This is on Labor Day. And you will get, of course, you just get in touch with the Secretariat, get in touch with my ministry, and indicate what your needs are, and we will ensure that you get your plans, that you are part. Now, I must say to members of Parliament, for those of you who have not received letters indicating the details of the program, I just want to apologize and say to you that there are those who have already received letters, those who have not had a chance to have a discussion with. So I'm using the opportunity today to speak to it. Consider that you have now been advised. And to ask you all to just get involved. And here is an opportunity, members of Parliament, to play your part in the National Tree Planting Program and to make sure that we make the Guinness Book of Record. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the Minister and her team, and I am very happy that the vision of Michael Manley still lives on. I also, Madam Speaker, I would like to also congratulate the Minister and her team and the government for looking at making sure that we pay special attention to climate change and how this will help to enhance and mitigate some of the dangers that lies ahead. But Madam Speaker, I would just want to find out, because we have been doing these things for years, and I've realized that the interest in Labor Day projects has dwindled so much that I'm wondering what we can use to make sure that we have full participation from the various communities. You have persons every year that take it as an interest, and you have persons who believe it's a big holiday that they can go on all kinds of trips, make all kinds of parties, and do nothing at all in keeping with the day. I think it must be reinforced that while you want to celebrate like what we normally do in the afternoon, there must be a period of the day that you use to carry out this mandate. If that is not done, Madam Speaker, I believe we need to revisit it next year and to look at the persons and the companies, because we can't be giving holidays for nothing and losing productive times. If it is not being done and they cannot identify properly, they go back to work. Go back to their regular work. Because we are losing a day, and it is most of the time it is used for recreational purposes. We have so much to do in this country, and we really need to reinforce and re-emphasize that this day is put aside for us to give back to our country. And I also, Madam Speaker, want to ask of you that we do serious monitoring and supervision in terms of preservation of these trees that are going to be planted. If we don't do that, it is going to be like a tokenism or for a day of photo shoot, and then after that we go on with them. All kind of animals take them over, bush and shrubs and everything. So if we are really want to really make a milestone and really create history, monitoring and supervision, we must be able to employ a few persons to protect these, nurture these plants until they are able to stand on their own. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Well, you know, put work into Labor Day was an excellent idea, and that is why we on this side, we have supported it and even further enhanced it and expanded it, because we introduced Workers' Week, right? So both sides of the divide, we have played our part in ensuring that we put work into Labor Day and we celebrate the workers of Jamaica. Now, I just want to reassure you that the Prime Minister has given strict instructions that this tree planting program is an important national program. And so the Forestry Department and within the Ministry of Economic Growth, with Minister Samuda being directly responsible for this program, that they are carefully structuring what happens after these trees are planted. They are providing the trees, and they also will be monitoring and ensuring sustainability. That is why the relationship with the municipalities are critical. That is why the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development is integrally involved. So the Forestry Department and the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and the municipalities will be charged and will be responsible going forward to ensure that these trees that are planted are maintained and properly nurtured to maturity. Thank you so much, member, for your input. And I just want to add a little, Madam Speaker, which is not, this is not for Labor Day, but this is something that each member of Parliament will be happy to hear. This is something that the Minister of Education has asked me to pass on, to advise that MPs will get a tablet to make a donation to a grade 5 student, right? Because the grade 5 students are being targeted for literacy this summer. And so you can complete the appropriate form and identify the beneficiary and return it to the minister. I want to thank the minister on your behalf. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following. Ministry Paper number 49 of 2023 entitled Annual Report on Audited Financial Statements of the Banana Board for the year 2020, along with the report and statements of accounts of the Banana Board for the year 2020.
Bills brought from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, I signify the willingness to take charge of the bill entitled An Act to Amend the Copyright Act that was laid on the table of the House on the 16th day of May, 2023.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you. A bill shortly entitled the Copyright Amendment Act 2023 read a first time.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice of second reading of the bill.
Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to sittings of the House, motions for leave to introduce bills, presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained, public business.
Madam Speaker, it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today. I therefore ask that the House adjourns until Wednesday, May 24 at 2 p.m. when we will get to the normal business of the House. But I just want to mention that on the 23rd, it's Labor Day. But that's the only free day we have. We get back to Parliament on Wednesday, the 24th. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, the question of the members is that the House do now adjourn until Wednesday, the 24th of May at 2 p.m. when we will return for a sitting of the House. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This House is now adjourned.